What's going on, everybody? Tonight, we will be diving into the NFL Quarterback Carousel, reports from Adam Schefter, Aaron and I's free agent wish list. But first, our guys from Handsome Jack.
Broadcasting live to Bills Mafia worldwide with Greg Tompsett and Aaron Quinn.
Welcome to the NFL. Doesn't matter what's happened before today. Today's a brand new day. It's a brand new season.
Your number one podcast for objective Buffalo Bills coverage. No matter where you are, we got you covered.
Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You are joining your host, Greg Tompsett, along with my partner in crime, Aaron Quinn. Aaron, Are you in a basement hiding somewhere? Are you in hiding?
No, my light is like spasming. And it was happening the other show, and it started happening again tonight. You
care about our viewers more.
Yeah, I did not want to cause anyone any uncomfort or feelings in their eyes, migraines, headaches, seizures, any type of way. It was not comfortable for me, so I shut it off, and we're going a little dark mode tonight. I shaved. I have some aftershave on. It smells good. I could play a jazz record. We could just smooth this out a little bit.
Well,
for some off-season talk.
Some of our friends on Twitter could probably use some anxiety reduction and some smooth jazz. Man, do people love to read into tweets? It is something.
I actually, when you logged on, I had a conspiracy taped up background. I was going to do a bit that I was like trying to decipher Stefon Diggs and Ed Oliver's and everybody's tweets and Instagram posts.
Anyone visualizing Charlie from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia? It was like spot on. It was really, really good.
Yeah, but somebody here, Roy Collins, saying that Aaron looks cold. One, I am cold because I don't have the facial hair is gone. It's down to the skin. It's a little colder on my face, but also I'm in a garage in here, and it's still cold in Buffalo. Yeah, and even though I've got it's still a little bit chilly in here, so I am a little bit cold down here in this dark dungeon tonight.
Yeah, I am not shaving. I am not. That is not my plan.
Where was it, Greg? You should shave. When I first met you, you were clean shaven.
Yes. Well, I worked for a company for 20 years where you were not allowed to have facial hair. So I genuinely, for a long time, because I started with them when I was in college as an intern. So like barely anybody can grow actual facial hair when you're like 21 years old. So I genuinely wasn't sure if I could grow facial hair.
Yeah.
So then all of a sudden I worked for a new company and I was allowed to, and I was like, oh, I kind of like this. And now it'll be a long time before I shave.
You have a nice face though.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. So a couple things before we get into our primary topic for today, which is our free agent wish list. A little bit of news with the NFL Quarterback Carousel here. The Baltimore Ravens slapped the non-exclusive franchise tag on Lamar Jackson, and I'm going to give you a quiz. But if you might have heard the news earlier or saw it,
I haven't been on Twitter today.
Can you name the only other player in NFL history to have the non-exclusive tag applied to them?
I did see it go through one of the chats and stuff, but I did not remember the name or retain it. Who was it?
Sean Gilbert,
gotcha.
Former, I believe he was with the Carolina Panthers at the time that he held out.
Was it with Bean?
It was prior to Bean. And wasn't he famously, isn't he like Darrelle Revis's uncle? I think that was a factor because he was a maybe an NFL owner's pariah, but he was a I don't know, like trailblazer is a cheesy term. He was a very well-respected player amongst the NFLPA because of his willingness. He was one of those players that like held out for 12 games until he got to the minimum eligibility to report and then get the accrued year to then go into the next season and really like fought for it to get to where he wanted to go. So just using that as an example, and shout out to Justin here. He got it in the chat, Sean Gilbert. The fact that we've only seen it one other time in NFL history. I think there's been some interesting stuff on Lamar where I think some people have jumped to some odd conclusions. It's fun to accuse the owners of collusion. It is. There's not formal collusion. The owners did not get together and be like, hey guys, let's screw him over.
Right.
And nobody bid on him. Now, is there an unspoken element of, hey, we don't really want to give up guaranteed contracts here. One random owner giving Deshaun Watson one is an anomaly. If we do two here, it's now a thing.
Sure.
We can't do that. And secondly, I want to give credit to Ben Albright, who made a really good point that I hadn't really thought of. When you have a non-exclusive rights free agent at quarterback, that means you have to negotiate, which you can do secretly, and then make an offer that floats out there for a while for the Ravens to decide if they want to match or not. If they don't, that's a super awkward situation to go back to your current quarterback and be like, yeah, we tried to go buy him, but then it didn't work out. But we still love you. You're still our guy. It's just so
very few teams have a setup where that doesn't crumble in your face, right?
Correct.
Like,
correct. You know, I mean, Carolina could do it. Houston could do it. I argue Atlanta could do it. I don't think Desmond Ritter's the kind of guy you got to worry
I
about
think so.
hurting his
It
feelings.
was weird how quick they were out. To me,
I don't
that
believe
decision
some of
was
that.
preempted. Yeah,
I don't believe some of those reports. I believe that some of those are like, hey, it doesn't benefit us to put it out there that we're interested in doing this, so
there's no
keep
benefit.
it. Yeah, there's no. Like, you say it a lot. Like, there's no benefit of telling the truth. Like, it just in these scenarios, like in life, there's plenty of times where you should tell the truth, kids. There's none in this scenario.
No, not this time of year. Like, you're going to get stuff fed to agents, which I think we'll talk about here in a little bit. Some information that is going to come out from agents. That's the tough thing, I think, for Lamar right now is controlling the narrative. That's what agents do well. And
TP here is spot on. The tacit rather than overt. It's not like formally provable collusion, but it doesn't
make sense. It's not good for the league to give that kind of money in a big guaranteed contract. I thought that meme of Rick and Morty walking through with giving up the middle finger to all the aliens as the Cleveland Browns walk into an owners meeting, because they kind of screwed over some other teams in being willing to give up that type of guaranteed money and being one of the first teams to really break like that, right? And now it's going to be expected for all these next big contracts that come up. Lamar's biggest issue is not having an agent to help that narrative that gets into the media, right? Like the owners really are going to control the narrative surrounding him. And that's where an agent, I think, comes in for some of these bigger names we've seen go up in big negotiations. Is Lamar doesn't have that person really representing him outside of himself, which he's done a good job. And I think he will get a good amount of money. I think if you're going to go up in a big fight like this, that's where an agent pays off, is controlling some of the narrative.
Yeah. A couple other things. Derek Carr signed in New Orleans. That seemed kind of foretold early on. It's the one place he visited when they allowed him to kind of poke around for trades. Then he did a couple other visits. Interestingly, he had a visit with the Jets. They decided, the rumor was Derek Carr was interested in an offer from the Jets. They wanted to wait to see what happened with Rodgers. He said, hey, I can't afford to risk that, and took, I think it was like $38.5 million a year from the Saints, which is a pretty good amount of money. Lauren, you know, she's here to look at your handsome face.
Yeah.
The approach there I thought was fine. I won't lie. I really want the Jets to play chicken and lose and to screw this up and have a chance to take a frustratingly talented roster. The rest of the other 52 guys on that team are pretty freaking good. I'm not afraid of them with Rodgers. I'm not afraid of them with Carr. I'd prefer they continue to suck at quarterback. That'd be cool if they continue to just fumble quarterback. I would love it if all of a sudden at the 11th hour, the Panthers come in and pay through the nose for Aaron Rodgers, and all of a sudden, or Kyle Shanahan all of a sudden is like, you know what? I'll take Aaron Rodgers, and they just lose out on whatever trade offer comes along, and that the Jets fumble this. That would be great.
That, or like it's so obnoxious that it like cripples them in some way, and that he does hit a wall. I want this to blow up in everybody's face. That's my ultimate wish
So they
casting
pay-
is like,
They pay through the nose in draft compensation and a huge contract.
Yeah.
And then Rodgers hits the wall and retires early.
Yeah, or he has like a great regular season and they are competitive, but he's still Aaron Rodgers and he hits walls and he can't get it done and things like that. Like, I want this to blow up miserably, and the pressure of New York. I think I don't think he'll like
hate it.
the media pressure in New York when there's big expectations for him and he doesn't meet them. I want this to just go poorly for everybody. I know that sounds terribly petty, but that's my vibe right now.
Yeah, I'm not. It's not always about even-handedness. Steve with a great comment here. Imagine if Aaron Rodgers takes that Mike White hit that Milano put on him. That doesn't feel the same at 41. Any other quarterback news going? Lamar, Rodgers. it does kind of sound
Brady
like Rodgers
floating
to the Jets
around
is there.
Rich Eisen was one of his rumors he heard at Indy, and then there was another clip I saw today from the Zolak there in New England saying that he does not think Brady's totally done yet, and that could line up in Miami. I think that Miami is more desperate to improve on Tua, and I think what they believe would be an improvement over Tua might not be what Miami fans think.
And I don't know that there's universal agreement in the building. I might believe Mike McDaniel is happy with Tua and is cool with it. I might believe their OC, maybe even Chris Greer, their general manager. I don't believe Stephen Ross is happy with Tua. I believe Stephen Ross would love a splash with Lamar or a splash with Tom Brady and
Rodgers.
They got a sexy roster too. They got a lot of talent down there. I'm not afraid of the Dolphins with Tom Brady, but I'd prefer it's not him. I don't want to see if maybe he can just dink and dunk with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill for a season. That doesn't sound fun. I don't want that.
No, definitely not. I think a lot of it too is going to become, where's Tua's health at, right? Like that's their big lingering thing. And as ownership, you probably don't really want to risk it on that with that window where you think that window is with the money you've invested. So that one will be definitely a close one to watch too. Brady has a kitten now.
Right.
Kellen says, I have seen that he does seem more in retirement mode than ever.
He's knitting sweaters and petting his kitten. So here, your wish casting of how the Jets could mess theirs up with overpaying in draft and money for Rodgers to hit the wall. I would love for Stephen Ross to double dip on the tampering and try to get Lamar Jackson when he's not allowed to, and then have them lose another $1.5 million and another first-round pick in 2024, and then also have to explain to Tua, no, we loved you the whole time. You were always our guy.
I hope the Bills get him on tampering too for Poyer, because it for sure happened.
They're for sure tampering Poyer there, absolutely. Speaking of which, and a very professional segue, there was we even debated pre-show, do we call this a report or a comment, or he said it on NFL Live, a throwaway line at the end of a segment. Schefter threw it in there that, hey, the Buffalo Bills expect to lose Tremaine, Edmunds, and Jordan Poyer. He was actually already talking about Poyer.
He was talking about Leslie Frazier. And,
I feel strongly that, obviously everyone knows these guys, whether it's Pelissero or Schefter or Breer, they get their information from agents. They don't get their information from teams. They get it from agents. The agents feed them information, and in exchange, they give them the breaking news, and round the cycle goes.
Except for when the Bills were with Russ Brandon, then the team directly
it actually was coming
just
from
leaked, sieved information wherever you wanted it.
And there's probably still a half dozen teams like that in the NFL too, that they just leak information. Probably 20, 25 are buttoned up pretty decent, and then there's a handful that are just crap shows. That is a shot across the bow from Edmunds' agents to Brandon Beane saying, hey, your last and final offer isn't good enough, and we're going to go to market, and you better up the ante here before free agency comes. It does not mean that they're actually expecting to lose him. It's always been, and we've talked about it here, it's always been a 50-50 proposition. It's always been very possible that we pay Tremaine Edmunds at the top of the market to keep him, and very possible that it goes beyond what we're comfortable with and we lose him. It is no more or less 50-50 right now than it was beforehand. And just to let you know, at this point in the last offseason, Matt Milano was still a free agent and we still had not re-signed him. And all of a sudden, at the 11th hour, on the weekend before it went to the start of free agency, boom, breaking news, we've retained Matt Milano. So that is absolutely still in play. It is absolutely still there, but it is not a sure thing. And it's probably honestly not even greater than 50-50.
Yeah, I don't think, to your point, the odds have changed here. The only thing I think
I'll even throw in the same. I think Poyer has always been 80 or 90% out the door, and I don't think that's changed either.
No, I do not think that's changed. I do think the thing that has changed for Poyer is I think that market's going to bottom out quicker on the safety market than maybe we thought a month or so ago. Having looked into this side of the ball, I think that it's going to get interesting for him. But if there's similar deals somewhere else, I think he'll still take the similar deal somewhere else. I really do at this point. I think he is moving beyond. But Edmunds, for me, the tough part that I'm trying to get with this, and I think there's probably a lot of tension and friction at right now in One Bills Drive that a deal is not done, because with the news of Leslie Frazier leaving, I thought that they would lean more into this being a need. I'm sure that there is pressure from Sean McDermott to make sure you're not losing the two of these guys in the middle of your defense, because we were talking a little bit in that Cover One DM group, some of the types of changes that might have to happen with the lack of athleticism, and how does that change some of schematically what you do, and then what type of change does that create for the players that you put in behind a Tremaine Edmunds. So there's just a lot of just losing the player and replacing him with a veteran or whatever it is. When we talk about that, that's okay. It's not the end of the world. People are right. The defense will move on, but there are going to be some other changes you need to make to get to the level of play that we did have before you lose a big time player like that.
Absolutely. So as we go through and again professionally transition into our next phase, when we get into our free agent wish list, we are going to approach it with some names. If we were to lose Tremaine Edmunds, if we were to lose Jordan Poyer, it's not predictive. It's not saying, oh, we're already planning on it happening, but we're going through it and listing some names. If we do have to replace a starter, here are some names we would look at. Before we get into our amazing free agent wish list, we want to talk to you guys about our Cover One OnePass.
Join us. Yeah.
It is something that we are super, super proud of and excited about. And people ask all the time, what is something that we could be doing to support you guys, to be able to help out? How can I help with what you're doing? This is it. Our OnePass membership, you get access to the Slack channel, which is awesome this time of year. You know, it's great on game days. It's great. You know, all different kinds of the year. We've actually set up an automated function where if you are tired of Twitter and don't want to function with everything going on there, it brings all the Cover One tweets in there in one thread in a separate channel, and every bit of breaking news, all the premium members bring in there, and it is hysterical, the contest of how fast it is. Like, I will literally be I'm already chronically online. So while I'm chronically online, I will see breaking news in the seconds that it happened. And in the amount of time I can right click to copy it, go over to Slack and go to paste it, people will already beat me there. It is instant. The breaking news gets to the Slack channel to be discussed. You get comments from Aaron and Eric and myself and the entire staff. Guys are in there all the time answering questions. People tag me for cap questions all the time, contract stuff, all kinds of stuff. You get sneak previews of breakdowns. It's a really, really cool function. And I know there's even more that you love, Aaron.
Yeah, no, I think for this time of year, it's really the whole crew at Cover One. I want to pat everybody on the back. I think this is our time really to shine in terms of free agency and the draft. I think there's a good mix of people here, and you get access to all of that in the Slack channel. And again, it's not just the content creators, Greg, like you said, it's the whole community and talking out some of these things. A lot of my best tweets and ideas come out of conversations that we're having in the Slack channel, and getting those thoughts through and processing those types of things with smart, intelligent fans that think like you. And I think this is the time of year to be in it. The off season is where, in my opinion, Cover One shines. And it's my favorite time to be active and involved in with our membership is this time of year leading up in through the draft.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, it's not even an exaggeration. It's where Aaron found me as a member of Cover One, and our awesome producer, Chris Kepner. It's where we found,
Chris.
being able to engage with people and being in those
some of our stats guys,
environments, some of our stats guys. That's where a lot of those things have come from. Yeah, if you enjoy Adam Pencil on the hockey watch along parties for the playback, that's where a lot of those guys came from. So awesome opportunity to engage with us. Such a great place to go. We would welcome you to join us there.
Yeah, absolutely.
For tonight's content, our free agent wish list on the defensive side. Credit more to Aaron. I love this term. When we were talking before, he threw out there my Goldilocks guy, and he was talking about it. It's perfect. Is that some guys are too expensive, this guy's too old, this guy's too injured, and this guy's just right. I just thought it was a perfect analogy for this kind of value and thrift shopping that we have to do sometimes to find those kind of fits. So we're going to go through some of our positions, and we got them kind of ordered in priority order to some extent here. We'll start with our linebackers. I will say, if we retain Tremaine Edmunds, I don't know that I need a linebacker. Like I'm fine with a fringe special teams backup guy, but it probably could even come in the draft. So I am really looking at a 1-for-1 in my mind, that if Tremaine Edmunds leaves, these are the guys I'd be open to replacing him. If they don't, I'm good. I guess if we don't bring back any of Matakevich or Dodson or any of those guys, maybe we got to bring in a fringe special teams level guy.
Maybe.
But I don't, it's not a priority for me. I'm okay with some of the names we have on the list. I'll let you lead this one off. Who were some of your honorable mention before you get to your Goldilocks?
Well, for honorable mentions, I think the two that pop up that are tough for me would be Levante David, Eric Kendricks, right? Like, I think this helps your comp pick scenario that we're trying to
both release players.
If we're getting in with a Tremaine Edmunds loss, I think we're going to end up with a comp pick anyway, in terms of what that contract, if he's leaving, that's going to be a pretty massive contract.
It's by far our biggest opportunity for when we've had in the Bean McDermott era. We haven't had anybody leave for a big time contract.
Correct.
This would be the first one.
And so I assume we're already playing in comp pick bingo land, and then so those would make sense. I do think the market's going to be a little heftier for them, but again, if you're losing Tremaine, here's the struggle, and maybe you can help me with this as a cap guy. Losing Tremaine doesn't mean, in my opinion, that we can then go replace him with a high value vet that you need to pay now. The idea of getting Tremaine back on a good value was that you can hide some of that early money right now where the Bills are up against the cap, and maybe not pay him as much this year, where would like a 1-2 year deal on a Levante David or a Kendricks cost as much as that first year on Tremaine in a bigger extension.
So it gets trickier. Obviously, it's easier to hide money the longer the deal is. Last year, Von Miller famously signed a 6-year, $120 million deal. Right. His cap hit last year was $5 million. So you can hide money. There are some opportunities to do some void years and play some games to reduce numbers, but it's harder with shorter term deals, and you're less interested in doing huge signing bonuses that are spread out when the number's not that big to begin with. So as an example, if we were to do a guy like Eric Kendricks, and I think it might cost him $6 million, $7 million, you might be able to, or say it's $8 million. You might be able to get that down to $4 or $5 million and kick some into future years. Like last year, we signed Jordan Phillips to what was actually a 1-year, $5 million deal, but we paid him like $2 million, $2.5, $3 million last year, and we're eating like $2 million of it this year. Roger Saffold was the same thing. We're paying for a little extra Roger Saffold this year. You can do it, and we did it. Those are two examples. We did it. So you can slightly reduce it, but if those guys are $10 million, you probably can only get it down to like 6, maybe 7. So there's not a lot of people throw it out there. Oh, why don't we choose Levante David, Eric Kendricks, Bobby Wagner, because it'll save us so much money. In 2023, it won't.
Right.
Like if we re-sign Tremaine Edmunds, we could do the exact Von Miller deal where it's 6 years, $120 million, $20 million a year, but it's $5 million in 2023.
Right.
The projections I did where it was 6 years, $105 million, $17.5 million a year. I had it at $7 million as a first-year cap hit. We're not going to get Bobby Wagner, Eric Kendricks, Levante David, etc.
that's
for less than $7 million, or that not
for
that
that
much
first
less.
year.
Yeah,
correct.
So now that doesn't mean we don't have to also do that anyways.
Sure,
but it won't be because we're doing it to save money.
And I guess that's where I'm at, is for that 2023, like, how much of a Band-Aid do you need where you would be paying more in that first year than you would be for Tremaine? Or do you just kind of try to find a bridge guy, maybe an aging guy? So that was my struggle a little bit here. Is maybe, I guess it's whoever loses this musical chairs. I don't think Kendricks and David and Wagner are all going to get 10 plus million. Like, they're not going to be all hanging out in that range. Somebody's going to lose this musical chairs. Maybe you just wait on that. Another guy that was interesting to me, 30 years old, kind of moved around at linebacker, Corey Littleton, played with Holcomb a little bit last year, and they moved him around at multiple positions. That would be more of a, we were kind of talking in the Cover One DMs, they're higher on Balin Spector at middle linebacker than we think, and it's having a bridge sort of to play that position out that has played in this defense with coaches that they have had here until he can take over that position. I don't love going into the year with that. For me, it still remains Tremaine Edmunds, even though it's too expensive and it'll probably get crazy. And hearing the reports that it could get into free agency scares me. Greg, he's my Goldilocks still, just because, not because of the value. I think it will be overpaid, but because of what he means to this team, the drafting him, the capital that you've already invested in him. Sharpen Pencil, Adam did a great posting all the different ages of when players get the most productivity out of them per position. You're about to enter Tremaine's window that you've already invested so much to get to. It's hard for me to walk away from that.
It reinforced the fact that, hey, him having his best season so far in his fifth year was not an anomaly. That's normally how the progression works.
Yeah.
And their sixth and seventh years are usually their two best. That's usually their career peaks at linebacker.
So much into this plant that you've grown here in Buffalo that it's finally fruiting. Like, it's about to give you exactly what you've planted. And I hate to miss out on it. I get that the market might determine that for me, but I can't come off Tremaine Edmunds. I know it's not the logical true Goldilocks here, but I can't come off it.
I respect it. I actually don't even know that I disagree. I'm bracing for the fact that I do think
I'm going to be disappointed.
I do think you might be disappointed. Some of the Band-Aid guys, I think you have on two ends of the spectrum. Eric Kendricks, Bobby Wagner are both getting into their 30s. Wagner is still exceptional against the run, kind of iffy against the pass. Eric Kendricks is still exceptional against the pass, kind of iffy against the run. Both of them are possibilities that would be imperfect. Leighton Vander Esch is a fun name. He's not that great. He's fine. He actually did stay healthy last year. He played every game for the Cowboys last year. That's encouraging. Anthony Walker is a guy who's bounced around, was okay for the Browns. There are two names that are intriguing from an age standpoint. They are normal age free agents, because normally coming out of your rookie deal, players are 27, because that's, you're 22 there, and then you play 23 through 26 in your rookie deal, and then you come out at 27. Most of them are not like Tremaine Edmunds, just turning 25. Drew Tranquill and Kazir White. So Tranquill was with the Chargers. Kazir White was with the Eagles. Both of them have balance in that they're good against the run and good against the pass. Both of them, I think there's some possibility of some value. And both of them are young enough where you could have a little bit of term on the deal where you could bring that down a little bit. I've seen projections all over the place, some at 5 million, some at 7 or 8 million. If you could get one of those guys down towards 5 or 6 million, that intrigues me and is interesting, and I think could be functional where you could make it cheap enough to make it work. But my Goldilocks, it is Levante David. He's still really freaking good. He's both good against the pass and the run. He is still arguably the smartest defensive player in the NFL. He knows what everyone is doing at all times and still has the twitch that, I was excited about Bobby Wagner, and then Eric showed me enough clips of him where I'm like, all right, he just doesn't happen in space anymore. He just ain't got it. And he's still smart in the run game, like I said, but he just, in space, in coverage, he just doesn't have it. Levante David still got it. And that is the Band-Aid move. That is the, sign Levante David for 2 years, draft a guy in the 3rd or 4th round. Hopefully this year it hits. Last year it looks like maybe it didn't. Or maybe he's a guy that trains Terrell Bernard, whatever. Levante David is a guy where in 2023 we wouldn't downgrade. Like now, I trust Tremaine Edmunds' trajectory. I want him for the next 6 years. Levante David's got 1 or 2 years left maximum. In 2023, Levante David could come in and our defense would not go down. We would still be really, really good. He would plug in next to Milano and still be excellent. I would play games with him at 2 years, 20 million, add in 3 void years and make the first year 6 million and figure it out and just pay for some of it later. I would prefer we keep Tremaine Edmunds, but he would be my one little splurge here. I don't think you could splurge if we lose Tremaine and Poyer. I think you'd have to go cheap at one of the spots. If we splurged and one of them was linebacker, Levante David would be my guy.
If you lose Edmunds, I think you have to splurge here to get to your point to not have such a drop off.
Yeah.
And David seems like the only guy that is that. I can't see Jermaine Pratt getting.
I think Pratt's going to get like it's hard because I think Pratt's really good, and I think Pratt's going to get like 13, 14 million. If people are right and he's a $9 to $11 million guy, sure, screw it, I'll sign him and figure it out. I think again in 2023, I actually think David's still better, but Jermaine Pratt you could sign for a 5-year deal, be 95% of what David was, and I think he's right. I think Pratt is a better run defender than Tremaine Edmunds and 90% as good of a coverage guy, and that can work. But I think he's going to get more money than what's projected. But guys, Brad Spielberger at PFF is really smart. He thinks that Pratt is a $10.5, $11 million guy. If that's the case, I'll give him 5 years, $50 million and figure it out.
Absolutely. Another, and this is more of a wish casting type thing. I had Taki and having Milano and Taki with positionless, no real middle linebacker. Just I don't know. Let's just get positionless.
Just Bale Inspector and Terrell Bernard. We already got it.
There we go.
All right. I'll lead this one off. So we already talked about linebackers. We'll move to safety. So this is, again, I love Jordan Poyer. He's literally probably like my second favorite Buffalo Bill since this era. He is everything that we've wanted for this organization. And I already know he's leaving and it makes me sad, but I just want to put that back out there. I would love to have Jordan Poyer back. Assuming we don't, I would love Anthony Prohaska's guy. If we're splurging, it's Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. I think that there's a really sexy setup where he can legitimately play nickel. You can play games with him and Taron Johnson where Micah Hyde can be the center fielder and you don't know who's guarding the slot and who's dropping back. And I know we got some insight that teams were starting to read the nickel because we were so good at disguising the safeties that they started to read Taron Johnson for the coverage. And now all of a sudden, if we could start playing games with that, man, that would be really fun. I didn't understand. You be quiet, Siri. I also think he brings an edge and an aggressiveness that I'm afraid we're going to lose with Poyer out, and that we wouldn't. If we got Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, if anything, he talks more trash than Jordan did, which is hard. Like, it's really hard to talk more trash than Jordan does. So that one's there. There's, I think people will bring up Jesse Bates. If we can't afford, if we're already out, Bates is going to get way more money than
that's
Jordan.
Going to be top, right? Top
I know our guy, Joe Marino. I love Joe. He had anybody didn't listen, he had his mock off season show this morning. It was fantastic. He got advice from some really smart people. He brought up Taylor Rapp. I think that's a decent one. And I think could be in that kind of value market. Von Bell is a name that comes up. Mike Edwards is a name I've seen thrown out there. And before I get to my Goldilocks, I will throw out the 2 Houston guys. Joe Dana came over from Houston. He's our new safety coach. MJ Stewart and Jonathan Owens are both free agents. So that's one of those self-fulfilling things. Like anytime you hire a new position coach, if he brings a guy with, it's usually with a pretty good indication that he thinks, hey, there's some untapped potential here and we could make something of it. So
that's our Poyer guy here.
Correct. Exactly. So if all of a sudden, we go into it and it's, hey, we got Micah and we kind of think DeMar Hamlin could play again. And we bring in Jonathan Owens and everybody's like, who the hell is that guy? Yeah, maybe we have something. If Joe Dana vouches for one of those two and they come with, we should be open to that guy being better than we realize. I won't lie to you guys and say I've done a ton of work on MJ Stewart or Jonathan Owens. I haven't. I've done some statistical research. I've talked to some people. If we end up going that route, I'll dive in more to learn about him.
Yeah.
The guy that is my Goldilocks is, you'll get a pattern here, another comp pick bingo, a release from the Cleveland Browns, John Johnson III. I've talked to people in LA and the Browns that I both trust. The Browns fired their defense coordinator for a reason. It was a disaster how they tried to use him. He is an aggressive Jordan Poyer type player, and they tried to play him like a center fielder and putting him 35 yards off the freaking ball. And that's not what he's good at, and it's not what he was supposed to do. I think he's still 28 years old. He's actually 27. He hasn't turned 28 yet. I think he might be on the cheap. He's comp pick bingo. I think we could let Poyer and Edmunds walk. You bring in David and Levante David, John Johnson III. We net 2 comp picks back, and I think he can get back to the kind of ball we saw in LA, which was really, really good. And I think that I don't know that we get all the way back to that peak, which was like, second team all pro kind of stuff. But he was really, really good. And I'd love to roll the dice that we could recapture some of that on a discount, 1 year, $5.5 million, $6 million. I'd love to take a roll of the dice of that. And I wouldn't even mind if it was John Johnson III and Jonathan Owens or something like that. And we start to prepare for what comes after Micah Hyde and how those things develop from there. So that's my Goldilocks is John Johnson III.
I think that's a fantastic one. He's shown up on my list before in the past. And I agree that if you just go look at his PFF grades or go look at the statistics about him, you're going to find a picture that's not fully painted with his usage in Cleveland. I think that's a fantastic fit for the Bills. I think his market's going to be interesting to me because I think, like you said to me about my thought on Paris Campbell of like, I think I'm getting a deal here.
If everybody thinks this is a deal.
It looks like on paper that, hey, if we can recapture and get him back trending to where he was just a couple years ago, a year and a half, 2 years ago removed here, then this is going to be a great deal for you. He's right there for me. Other names, I think he'll get paid well to come back to the Giants. Julian Love, if the Giants somehow went in on Poyer and went for the vet leadership role, I would love to see him kind of shake free. A guy that I keep coming back to for sort of a Goldilocks style is Mike Edwards. I was big from Tampa Bay. I was big on him in the draft. He has not performed up to my draft expectations of him in Tampa. Tampa struggled a little bit last year in general, but he was a huge fit for me back when he was a draft prospect. And this would be a guy you buy real low in on. He's still 26. He'll be turning 27 here this next year. I think it would be a situation like a Jordan Poyer where somebody sees something. We liked him in the draft and we think we can get the most out of this. This is the position, Greg. You and I were talking a little bit offline. If there's a position for the Bills that I feel like they can invest the least amount into and get the most back in return, it is defensive back and specifically the safety position. I think if people did go look at John Johnson's last few years at PFF, if you went and looked at Jordan Poyer's first few years before becoming a Buffalo Bill, or even Micah Hyde's first few years before becoming a Buffalo Bill, it would probably look pretty similar to what John Johnson's last couple of years have looked like. Sometimes it's just getting the right guy in the right system. I think this system fits safeties that they can find the right fit for. And I do like your point too about
we did see a limit with Jaquan. Like I think that there is a limit from an athleticism standpoint.
That was a size plus athleticism problem that I don't think could be playing in the NFL, right? Yeah. Like if somebody targets him, that's just too much, I think, to overcome. I do think there's a point to your point that Dean Marlowe is on my list here for it won't be the Hyde replacement, but I think they know that having a replacement on the defense that can play some special teams and do some stuff is going to be important. I think that's your that's your bottoming out of athleticism in my turn, in terms of this person can play some starting role on this team at some point.
Yeah. And I think we need to be open. If we're being honest with ourselves, the Jordan Poyer buy low investment is MJ Stewart and Jonathan Owens.
Yeah.
Like you bring over the position coach from a crappy team, which Cleveland was the dregs of the league at that point. Yes. some injury history with a position coach that vouches that, hey, if you surround them with some good talent, these guys are legit. If we see one or both of those guys signed, those would be sneaky indicators to me that, hey, maybe there's a little something here. Selfishly, I want both.
Sure.
Give me, John Johnson the third and MJ Stewart, John Johnson the third and Jonathan Owens, where all of a sudden now you have depth and the ability to compete like that, and you're not banking on DeMar Hamlin playing, you're not banking on Christian Benford moving to safety, you're putting yourself in that position. But we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah, I'm with it.
All right, lead us off. Who are some of your names at defensive tackle?
Defensive tackle. So this one, again, I think is going to be a tough one for us. We saw our friend Ed Oliver posting to Instagram about he might have been watching Jerry Maguire talking about,
if you want to talk,
show me the money. I don't want to hear it. So I don't know exactly what it was. I'm not reporting. This is all allegedly. I saw screenshots from Ed Oliver's Instagram. Anyway, if Ed Oliver is a Buffalo Bill next year, this is not a position that I'm addressing with aggression necessarily. I think we talked offline a little bit. I'm fine with replacing Jordan Phillips. I'm fine with replacing a Tim Settle, but I'm not making a huge investment. I love the defensive line with Von Miller healthy when he comes back, and we'll talk about edge in a little bit. I liked the rotation when healthy last year. I thought they were playing very well. I think they got to the quarterback pretty quickly. I think they created a lot of pressure. It was not necessarily a problem. It became a problem when things started to unravel with health. Von Miller going out really changed how this defense attacked the opposing quarterbacks. Daquan Jones going out in the playoff game, I think, showed the limits of Ed Oliver and his size in the NFL. I'm torn on Ed Oliver too. I know he's not living up to necessarily the value of his pick, and definitely not now to the value of the contract. Probably, he's probably not going to get the money he's looking to be shown necessarily from Buffalo. But he's still a good disruptive player. Like, I do think he's valuable if he's here. If he's not here, it kind of changes the game a little bit. And I wasn't really thinking about a offseason without Ed Oliver. So for me, my interior defensive line guys does not look like a sexy list. This is probably my worst part of my list here. I am in favor of bringing back a Jordan Phillips. I know you mentioned offline to me concerns about the injury history with him as of late. I get worried about it, but I don't know how much of it is trends versus a tough couple of years and circumstances. When he was playing at a healthy level, and I know that hasn't been over the last 3 years, he was exactly what this defense needed from a rotational defensive interior lineman, and maybe not at a great deal, but I think the fit, the understanding of the defense, all that stuff matters. If he's not coming back, I do like maybe bringing in, we've talked about him last year. I don't know how much he's got left at 30, going into 35 years old. I think Linval Joseph was my Goldilocks in terms of, I wanted him now for 4 different, I think, free agent windows.
Eventually, someday.
But I do, my concern with this interior defensive line group was as soon as Daquan Jones went down, and I know that Phillips was hurt and playing. I don't even know that if Phillips was fully healthy, he replaces that Daquan Jones role in this defense of that big type body guy. He doesn't play. Jordan Phillips doesn't play as large as he is. And so if you're going to lose out on Jordan Phillips and keep Tim Settle, I would rather have a big bodied, really strong anchor rotational guy. And maybe it doesn't have to be an aging guy, but I think maybe it would be right now for the Bills, where you get a 1-year thing on an aging guy that can be that replacement, where if Daquan does go down again, you have a big body type guy that can take up some space, eat some space. And maybe it isn't moving Ed Oliver, and maybe it is Groot coming inside or Boogie Basham coming inside on some of those passing downs, but you have a rotational one tech. That's the one thing that, they finally got the one tech fixed last year. They didn't have it as soon as Jones went down. They had a bunch of 3 techs that just don't fill that role too well. So I'd like to see a little more depth there. So I'm going to land on Lavelle until they get him.
I like it. I think that's absolutely in the ballpark of what we're looking at. And you touched on exactly where my head is at. I actually am only interested in size. I want to keep linebackers clean. We have enough tweener defensive ends that can kick in on passing downs that, that's what Boogie Basham's good at. Bring him inside. If we bring Shaq Lawson back, let him go inside. Groot's great at pass rushing on the inside. Go with a 3-man line and, extra linebackers and safeties and stuff like that. I'm fine with more of that creativity and flexibility, especially when Von Miller is back. So that's where my head is at for all of these. I'm looking at Andrew Billings. I'm looking at Kalen Saunders. I'm looking at even, obviously I would love a Draymond Jones or Javon Hargrave, Delvin Tomlinson. Those guys would be way out of our price range. Similar guys, you mentioned Linval Joseph, Akeem Hicks, Fletcher Cox. Those are aging guys that maybe you could play around with. Sheldon Rankins is really close for me. I think he might be priced out a little bit but is probably not far off of that Jordan Phillips range. I think he's like a $6 million guy. I love the idea of A'Shaun Robinson. A'Shaun Robinson has played well in LA. He's 28. I think you can get him pretty cheap, $2.5 million. I think Billings would be $2.5 million. So A'Shaun Robinson is my primary one. If we also lose Jordan Phillips and we need, a one tech and maybe also need a 3 tech, Poona Ford is a guy that I think from Seattle you might be able to get for that similar Jordan Phillips money. So if we went in and it was, Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones, and behind Daquan Jones was A'Shaun Robinson, and behind Ed Oliver was Poona Ford, that's a 4-man defensive tackle rotation I could work with. So it's that kind of idea. But my primary is I want a big body that keeps our linebackers clean. And in today's NFL, when they're not there, I don't know that I need it to be a traditional 3 tech. I'm cool with the NASCAR formation and putting some of our defensive tackles or defensive ends in a pass rush mode and going with it from that standpoint to be able to go that route. So my preference would be we go with an A'Shaun Robinson, Andrew Billings, and then if we lose out on Jordan Phillips, maybe we go with the Poona Ford.
I think we could segue into edge, and I could talk about a guy that could maybe do some of that kicking in for us.
Let's do it.
If you got nothing else on the interior here,
I'm ready.
Dante Fowler could kick in on the interior for you, just like he did in Dallas. Eric did a great job breaking that down, and their version. Is he your Goldilocks? He's right there
he's my
for me. He is not my Goldilocks because I think there's a chance there's a team out there that sees that he's got that athleticism and explosion still left. And for me,
it's straight off seasons. I've thought it for two years in a row. He's got $3.5 and $4 million.
He's just stuck there.
I just don't. I think he would have gotten it. I think he would have gotten it already.
Yeah. I get you could be right here. If that's the case, for sure, it's my Goldilocks. And because for me, it resets almost that it's a little bit of Jerry Hughes with more flexibility. If you had Jerry Hughes a couple years back, he still got that explosion. But, Eric showing some of the reps where he kicks inside. Once you get Von Miller back, you can bring this guy in those third down packages and have twitchy athletic type dudes that the Bills don't really have. You can kick Boogie Basham inside, but he's going to win with power. He's going to win with different moves and stuff like that. He's not going to win with that twitch and it's crazy athleticism. Groot's really not going to give you that either, as good of a pass rusher as he is. It's really what you're looking for on the opposite side of Groot until Von Miller gets back. And that's my biggest concern right now on the defense is everything Von Miller is going to say this offseason, I'm not going to listen to. I'm assuming this is going to be a normal case scenario for somebody, and that it will be about a year until we see him again, and that it won't be an exact Von Miller. And so there's concern that we need that type of guy. I didn't land on Fowler for my Goldilocks, although I might be kicking myself now after talking to you about value on him. I landed at Melvin Ingram at 34 years old. This is another guy that's been on my list a number of times, and I thought that maybe the value would finally come down. I think his value has come down to the point where that would be one where you could get a guy that still has pass rush productivity. I think they would be able to get him on a deal where he's in the mode of chasing rings. He'll go to a contender and chase rings at this point.
Yeah, I like it. Obviously there's other guys in that mode, Brandon Graham, Justin Houston, Robert Quinn, any of those guys I'd be fine as a rotational pass rusher. I think they would fit just fine. All of them are in their mid-30s now. Charles Omenihu is a guy that I know Eric likes. We've talked about before. Anthony likes him a lot as well. I think he's the guy that is my Fowler, where if I thought the value was lower, he'd be my Goldilocks, but I feel more confident he's going to get priced out.
At 25, under 26 years old.
Yeah, 25 years old. He doesn't even turn 26 till later in the season. Yeah. Fowler Jr. is my guy that I think is that right mix. 1 year, $4 million. I think we might be able to snag. One other one is weird. I thought it was hysterical that he got a 5-year, $82.5 million deal at $17.5 million a year last year with Tennessee. But Bud Dupree is one of those guys that's fallen so far that if he's now a $3 million guy, I'm fine with him being a rotational third pass rusher as a guy. Like, he's not like, he wasn't that number one $17 million guy, but he's also not like out of the league trash. Like, I'd be fine with him being a rotational guy playing 40% of snaps, coming in on big third downs and being that guy. He can still bend the edge and get there. So he's a guy that, like, I think his numbers gotten too low. So if that's the case, fans would be, oh, he was a bust. But, well, he was a bust at 17 million. If we get him for 3 million, I'm open to that.
Has Yannick's value finally come?
He's another one that's hard to peg. Similar to Dante, like, teams continually don't pay Dante Fowler. Teams continue to pay Yannick Ngakoue. So it's hard for me to gauge that, like, all of a sudden he's not going to get paid because teams keep like stumbling over themselves to pay him. So, and then Eric McNeil here bringing up Frank Clark was released after I did my research. He would fit right in probably with that Justin Houston, Melvin Ingram, Robert Quinn area. I would rather Dante Fowler. I would rather Charles Omenihu, and I'd probably be in the same ballpark as Bud Dupree. Like, if the number was right, I'd be cool with Frank Clark. But I'm not paying extra for him. I know the last thing people remember is him having a huge game in the playoffs and them talking about some of that stuff. He also was pretty horrible last year. And like, people were talking, like, there's a reason he's being released, and there's a reason that they're talking about, that he's coming available here, is because, the last 3 years he's had 6 sacks, 4.5 sacks, and 5 sacks while he's being paid like a $15-20 million guy. So I know, like, people remember the stuff in the playoffs and it looks great, but he's actually been super inconsistent and gone long stretches of games with no pass rush production.
Yeah.
All right. The last one here, I technically listed quarterback, but so I'm going to give a scenario where we would sign a guy. Dane Jackson, I don't think he's going to get restricted tendered because I don't think we're going to give him 2.6 million. I think we're going to do exactly what we did when Isaiah McKenzie and Levi Wallace were restricted free agents. Everybody freaked out for a day when we didn't RFA tender them, like, oh my God, what are we doing? And then the next day we signed them to minimum deals and brought them back. That's going to be our plan. And we're not going to tender Dane Jackson, but all of a sudden somebody else throws him $3 million a year. We're like, wait, what are you doing? We're not going to pay $3 million a year. And we strike out with John Johnson and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, and we only have MJ Stewart, and we decide, okay, we do need to move Christian Benford to safety. So now we don't have Dane Jackson and we don't have Christian Benford at corner. I think we would try a versatile, movable piece that has some ability to back up Taron Johnson, has some ability to push Kyer Elam at outside corner, and has experience playing special teams. I spent a weird amount of time looking for that guy and going, like, literally checking snap counts, going through all the different stuff and the projections for the money. And the guy I found is Tampa Bay's Sean Murphy Bunting, 27 years old. They've got him at a 3 or 4 year, $3 or $4 million projection. I think he's movable, that you could play him at multiple different spots. A lot of people think he has long-term safety potential. He plays special teams. He could play outside. He could play nickel. He could play safety. He'd be the guy. If those other scenarios happen and we needed to actually sign someone who is playable but doesn't have to come in and be a starter, he would be my range. I also looked at, I wish I had left him here, from San Francisco. It's going to make me crazy. I'll look it up because now it's going to make me crazy. Who did you have anyone at corner?
I took almost 0 time.
Yeah.
No,
I don't think we're going to sign a corner.
The scenario I see playing out isn't Dane Jackson getting money. I think he comes back at that deal like you had first suggested. He's the perfect cornerback 3. I know you and I talked about a little bit. We got to come up with a new name.
Cornerback 4. It is.
Nickels should be their own like whole section. Yeah. That's going to be
Emmanuel
my next
Mosley.
fight.
God, it was going to make me crazy. Emmanuel Mosley is the other guy that I considered.
Okay. Yep. Nickel needs to be its own. That's gonna be my next pinned tweet movement. After we protect Josh Allen here, we'll be getting Nickel its own credit to where it's at. So that'll be my next fight. But outside of that, I think Dane Jackson is the perfect for this defense. Backup rotational cornerback, where he doesn't even have to be a guy that necessarily makes the active roster on this team. If safety position shakes out in a way where you don't need Christian Benford, I'm happy with Christian Benford being cornerback 3 going forward.
Oh, yeah.
And then having some draft guy or rookie guy on the practice squad that you're developing behind that. But until we know how that's going to shape out, I think Dane Jackson is maintaining a very great floor at cornerback 3 that would give you the versatility where if you are caught with your pants down a little bit at the safety position, you would have that flexibility to kick Benford over, and you'd have a guy in Dane Jackson that's played reps in this defense with these guys, and you're going to have a lot of loss of continuity here this offseason, no matter how you slice it. We're talking about possibly, for sure, Jordan Poyer leaving, a potential of Tremaine Edmunds leaving. I want to gain back as much of the continuity as I can, not just for game day situation, but in the locker room with these guys that have spoken the same language. Even though Leslie Frazier's leaving, a lot is going to stay the same for this defense, and I want to retain as much of that continuity as we can. And I know people are out on Dane Jackson, but he is an adequate replacement level cornerback in a pinch.
Yeah. And there are some names I poked around. So Kel here talking, if we sign a corner, it'll be a veteran camp body in June or July. I did poke around in that range of, hey, what if they try to bring in a Patrick Peterson, a Logan Ryan, a Troy Hill, a Bryce Callahan, one of those veteran, a Kyle Fuller, that, hey, they can play nickel. They're veterans. They understand what's going on. They don't want to do all training camp, but maybe we need a guy, or realize, hey, we could use some additional depth. My surprise would be, we need those guys to play special team snaps. I've been talking for a while that I want developmental spots at wide receiver. I want developmental spots at tight end for offensive skill positions. To do that, all the other backups in the linebacker and secondary have to play special teams, because you still need 11 guys on every coverage unit. You still need 11 guys to play special teams. Patrick Peterson's not playing special teams. Right. Bryce Callahan's not playing special teams. Troy Hill is not playing special teams. Logan Ryan is not playing special teams. So that was my one thing I was looking for, and why I picked Sean Murphy.
That might put Dane Jackson. I don't think Dane's played a ton of special teams.
He's not, and he hasn't been good at it when he is, because he's not a special athlete. So that's another reason that maybe they do look another direction, maybe even in the draft, and maybe they look for their Saran Neal of cornerback. Where it's a more special athlete project, but we know he can play special teams. So we'll see where that goes. I don't expect it. I think it's most likely that our secondary, or our cornerback is already known, and it's Tre'Davious White, Kyer Elam, Taron Johnson, Christian Benford, Dane Jackson. Those are the 5 guys, and that is what it is.
They can wait for Wild Goose to get cut again. Bring him back as their athlete.
Let the goose loose.
He'll get cut again, I'm sure, at some point.
Yeah. So I hope everybody enjoyed our free agent wish list and some of our commentary and the other things going on here. As always, Aaron and I said, this show won't go long, and now we're almost at exactly an hour again, because it's what we do every single week. Just randomly talk. Any final thoughts for the people?
Hopefully there was no weird tweets or anything while we were talking here. That we have to go through. I don't know. Yeah, just buckle up. It's going to be a fun upcoming week here. This is where news starts to get the craziest for the NFL. Greg Vorst and I are talking all the time about how NFL news, it really just doesn't ever stop. Every single day you can find some story in some fan base that is just driving the fan base nuts. So it's about to get crazy. It's going to be an interesting ride this year, Greg. This free agency series that we've done, really unlike any other in the 5-6 years I've been putting these shows together. It's come less and less. The salary cap is feeling more and more real. I've never been as much of a believer as it has been this year. And that's why we came into this, this Goldilocks phase. But it also is because we have to step back and see that this team, if they are going to do more of a run it back than we thought, that doesn't feel good based on the results of the last game we had. But it's also a really good team. That's why you're seeing less and less need every single year. And that while we're replacing replacement level adequate backup type guys at really key positions. That's because they've done a good job throughout the years. And that's, Olive Skin Gump is his name on Twitter, posted a really good one in one of my, I was prepared to lose Poyer. Edmunds is going to kind of shake me. And he was saying the team got good by drafting and getting low tier end free agents and filling this roster up the right way. We really shouldn't have reason that if guys leave, this is going to be the first time we have a big contract type guy leave, that they won't be able to be okay and fix it. And I think that everyone needs to know that message, because I get caught up in it too. Like, oh my God, if we lose this guy, everything's going to change. And as long as we have Josh Allen, that's the guy that we can't lose. Everything else, I do believe in this front office, this coaching staff, to fill into an acceptable level where they're going to go out and field a team that's doing what they've done over the last 4 years and maintain that bar.
Yeah. So, I think Kel had a great question. If I was interested in any out of the box ideas, like bringing sumo wrestlers in to play defensive tackle, I am. His name is Siaki Ika. I would love this big, beautiful man from Oregon,
a good looking
from Baylor, to come. Look at that belly. It's just fabulous. Like, that is just a beautiful belly right there. Mm-hmm. He's 6'3", 350 pounds, but moves really, really well. That's right there. Draft me that guy to sit behind Daquan Jones and to learn the ways from Daquan Jones, and then to take over. And we have that one tech just for the next, decade, all locked up and ready. That would be fantastic. So I am interested in putting a sumo wrestler at defensive tackle. His name is Siaki Ika, and I want him in my life.
I love it.
My other out of the box idea is we should sign Jamel Dean and Javon Hargrave and Jesse Bates and all the expensive guys. That'd be fun too.
Just say F the cap.
Just screw the cap. Just make
instead
up
of F them picks.
F them,
F them caps.
F that money. All right, guys.
That's my out of the box idea. Is I have a little bit of a gut instinct feeling that Brandon Beane is gonna have a hard time not making some crazy big trade at some point. I don't know what position is gonna be, where it's gonna be. I think he's gonna work out something that's like, damn, how'd they do that?
How about this? The next offseason that Brandon Beane doesn't go on a crazy spending spree will be the first offseason that Brandon Beane has not gone on a crazy offseason spending spree. He's never not done it.
He wants the picks this year, but I do think there's a part of Brandon Beane that is okay with some of the future picks not being in his pocket.
Yeah. Just give up the next 2 first-round picks for Brian Burns. Done.
Yeah.
We'll just add just a dominant game-wrecking pass rusher.
Sure.
And then Von Miller is like a nice cherry on top.
These premier positions, I say it all the time because it's a harder way to do it. It's a tougher lottery ticket to draw, is to get a trade to work out your way for some big name that's also going to take a contract that's going to work out for you long term. But we always look at like the free agency and draft, and everyone's like, oh man, if we don't hit there. But good teams make big, good trades all the time, every season. Someone's willing to do it. There's going to be somebody that Brandon Beane's on the phone with that I don't think he's going to be able to not make the deal and get aggressive.
Yeah, we'll see where it goes. We're going to be there for you. Make sure you're checking it out. I know up here, one of our guys asked about who the best reporter was. It's the names that you know. It's Adam Schefter. It's Tom Pelissero. It's Albert Breer. It's Ian Rappaport. Like, I know we like to bust on those guys if they're cheesy. This is the time of year where it's like being at the trade deadline and following Adrian Wojnarowski and Shams Charania. Like, it's just, those are the guys. Those are the guys. It's the names you know.
The way
Schefter,
the Bills are.
Rappaport, Pelissero, Breer.
Yeah, the way the Bills are now, I don't think you're going to get a ton of local guys getting scoops ahead of them. In this case scenario, I think there are some teams out there like that. Aaron Wilson might be one. He usually seems to have a lot
Aaron is very, very good.
The scoops on guys,
and he's really good with some of the like sneaky mid-tier guys.
Yes, yeah, and he will be the one to tell you if the Texans safeties sign with the Bills first. For sure.
You're spot on. He will know that before anybody else.
Yeah.
So that's a great addition to add in there. Joel Corey is also a guy that I really like. He's if you're talking about some of the nerdier cap stuff, he is an awesome follow this time of year to understand. Hey, what does that deal really mean? Like when it came out, Von Miller got 6 years, 120. Well, it's really 3 years, 51 million. And then we'll see. He's very, very good at that quick interpretation of some of those deals. So he's a good follow as well.
Awesome. Love it.
All right, guys. Appreciate it. If you are looking for more Sabres fun, our man,
Ooh.
fantastic producer extraordinaire, Chris Kepner, will be on with Adam and with, I think, Anthony Prohaska and the guys tomorrow at 7 p.m. for Sabres Stars. I know it's hit a little bit of a downturn, but it's been an awesome experience getting
They're
to know
in
the
the hunt,
Sabres and
I
follow
heard.
them. They're still in the hunt. And that playback watch party is a fantastic time. It's really, really fun. Make sure you're checking it out. Chris and Adam and Anthony are doing a great job with it. It's been a ton of fun. Make sure you're following everything we have going on here. We have some schedule shuffling that we're going to be doing here with some work travel for me. So we will be back on next Thursday. We will be back on a week from tomorrow, recapping that first week of free agency. But make sure you're checking out the other guys, the other shows. Our shows on Monday. You're going to have the roundup right at 7:00. You're going to have air raid hour that night at 9. They'll have the first day of free agency. The second day, you will have Going Deep, followed by Disguised Coverage. Then on Wednesday, you will have the film show. And the film room breaking things down, and then we will be back on Thursday wrapping up that first week of free agency, showing you all the stuff that we have going on, and looking forward to it all. And then on Friday you can jump on Twitter Spaces with Aaron and with Chris.
Yeah, with Chris and I. Joe DeRosa is there a bunch. One of our new guys does a show on Saturdays. All kinds of guests. Tilt Money was in there the other day. Been having some great conversations over there. And then Friday night.
Oh yeah, you can come talk to me. This Friday night we will be doing the Greg Tompsett Sports Show, and I will be bringing in. I got a couple of really cool guests from the Action Network that are going to come on, give you some tips on how to pick the best bracket for March Madness, talk about some of the fun other games besides just bracket contests that you can do, and some strategy on how to bet on the NCAA tournament and ways to be able to make yourself a little bit of money. So
awesome.
We're going
to a free tip for you. I know you didn't invite
me
onto the show, but my tip to everyone this year is to just go right into the middle, write UConn, and fill that in, and then work everything else in backwards.
Unless you're in a contest with Aaron, and then he's already going to beat you to it.
Then already, I'm going to win in the points there too. Maybe I'll have some facial hair next week when we meet up again. Greg, what do you think? We'll see. Maybe we can track how little facial hair I can actually grow.
We can actually see how long it takes you to grow everything back.
Yeah. It's going to be ugly.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind shaving my face for like the hour or two after, of just like exfoliating and feeling
it was
nice,
cold though.
face.
I had to go pick up my kid, and it was quite chilly. Even though I have like little actually patchy facial hair, it's not really a beard. I feel embarrassed even calling it a beard. Not having it was noticeable.
Okay. Well, all right, guys, this was a ton of fun. You guys were great tonight. The chat was fantastic. We appreciate you all very, very much. On behalf of fantastic producer Chris Kepner and Aaron Quinn, I am Greg Tompsett. You've been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we